talking about mouse problems. No, just kidding. We're talking about lath.
So this is a roll of metal lath. It is very sharp, so you have to wear gloves when you're using it. Gabe has already measured the opening of the space is 2 inches, so I'm just going to measure 2 inches here. This width is longer than the width of the rafters, so we'll just cut it down to size when we get the appropriate amount in the hole. And then you have to use something like this, which is just metal cutters. So I'm just going to cut through the lath right now, just cutting it probably just a little bit bigger than I need, just to make sure that I'm not wasting any. And we're going to fill the entire space. And again, it's just very sharp when you're cutting it. I try to push it away from myself, so these gloves are not that thick. So it will poke me even still through these gloves. So I'm just trying to keep my hand away from this and then pushing this side away from my hand so that it doesn't stab me. And another reason to give yourself like a little bit extra when you're cutting is because it's not very easy to cut. So you can kind of get slightly off. So you want to give yourself that extra amount just in case you go on a slight diagonal. There we go, and I'll just fit this piece in the mouse hole space. Just kind of place it here. I'm going to dry fit it a little bit. We do want this to go back as far as possible because we're trying to, get the sledge here. Yeah, so that should work. Let me just look and see where I need to cut off the end here and just let it off. And there we go. Completely custom fit to the space. We just measured the width and measured the height that we wanted, right? So we wanted it as far back as we possibly could get it. If you wanted it to be a less deep kind of shelf here with the logs, then you would just kind of measure here. And the lath would work fine there too, except that we want the deepest shelf we can possibly get to show off all of these old logs. So we measured as far back as I could fit the lath, which was about 2 inches. So this is just insulation right here, and this goes into a soffit outside, which connects to the porch. So probably like mice are running around in there and then popping inside here because it's warmer. We had a huge hole right here where they had chewed through some of the insulation and just made like a little mouse hole so they could get in. So now we're gonna lath it like the rest of this here, and we're going to then plaster over top of it. So after we measured, we just used the metal cutters that I showed you guys before. These are the cutters that we use for the lath. And then again, just thinking about, which way you want your lath to go. They have these little diamond patterns here. And so I like to cut it this way as opposed to this way. It's much easier to cut, and I try to cut just along these little kind of solder lines here, if it makes sense, if it's the right size. It's also easy to cut like in the middle of these diamonds, as opposed to cutting it this way. The metal kind of bends, and as soon as it bends, it's very hard to snip. So you want to kind of keep it basically as least crushed as possible. So once we cut our piece, I just dry fit it in here. And then all you do really is just press it into the space, and you can kind of hear like the metal hitting the other piece of lath like that, and it'll just kind of click into place and like hold itself there. And it's also hitting the very edge of the wood of the rafter and kind of, holding itself in place. So we had these in place last night. We could hear some of the mice like trying to push against it to get in, but they did not get in. None of the lath was even moved. So You could put a screw here and screw it into the wood. Obviously there's screws here to hold this to the ceiling because once the plaster gets on it, it becomes heavier and you don't want to pull it off of the roof or the ceiling part. But for this purpose, we could actually have plastered this without lath, but since we could see mouse activity and we knew they were coming in here and the metal lath is a great deterrent, we decided to lath the rest of this. So we've lathed this one and then basically all of them all the way down so that no more mice can get in on this side.